Welcome to a special series where we interview a host of notable people from the G100 Summit in Los Cabos, Mexico, on the moment that changed everything. Here, you'll learn their secrets to success, gain invaluable insights into what shaped their careers, and key takeaways on what it takes to be a leader in their field.
This is absolutely what we need. This is absolutely the future. We have to get on this.
Talk to people who think so beautifully about big, complex challenges.
G100 Los Cabos, Mexico, a special series on the moment that changed everything.
You're an immigrant. Where are you from?
I was born in Moscow, and my parents went through a great deal of effort to leave and start a new life for us. And we joined a community in Santa Cruz in California.
Hold it. You left Moscow and went to California?
Yes.
Okay. It sounds like the beginning of a book or a movie.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it is. And I had the most amazing privilege of living with a host family. We didn't have any money, so a host family took us in. And that's where I really learned the power of giving and the power of community. Because, these strangers, they took us in and we made a life for ourselves in this country, or in the U.S. And it was the first time I've seen the ocean, so the first time that I fell in love with the ocean, and standing in this water and washing, my legs, I was thinking to myself, God, this is like another planet.
How old were you?
I was 8.
Okay. So what did your parents do in Russia?
My father was a physicist. He worked for the Moscow School of Engineering in Moscow. I don't actually know what the translation is, but it's an engineering and physics school in Moscow. And my mother was a teacher.
Cool. So you came to the States, you said Santa Cruz.
Yes. You
enrolled in school. How was your English?
I was thrown into the classroom, and I just kind of learned in the native way. I was moved up in one grade because I knew that the multiplication table, and so they said, okay, she's actually should be in 3rd grade. So I skipped 2nd grade, and we have a joke in our family that because my husband also skipped 2nd grade, but because he was too tall for 2nd grade in Japan, and we joke now, our daughter came to us and said, Mommy, Daddy, I'm the first one in our family to go to 2nd grade. So it's a family
So
joke.
not only that, but she has a very good sense of humor.
Yes.
Okay, so what was school like? I mean, okay, you skipped a grade. I get that. You don't speak the language.
Yeah.
Okay, but you can multiply 7 times table, right?
That's right. Yeah, it was all a whole new world for me. It was just an incredible opportunity for me to see a completely different planet from the one that I grew up on. I remember the lines, it was 93 when we left, February of 93. And it was a really tough time in the Soviet Union. My parents were not wealthy, and it was hard to get food. We would go to the stores, and we would stand in these lines, and the question was, what do they have? It wasn't like,
right.
Let's
we want
choose.
bread.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah.
Yeah. So coming to the United States and seeing the bounty and the amazing way that human beings interacted and how people treated each other, it was, for me, a huge privilege. And I just felt like I felt like I didn't belong, but I was allowed to be a part of it.
In terms of context, had McDonald's opened up in the Soviet Union?
Just the first glimpses, yeah.
Right. So things were okay. So it was still a rough time.
Yeah.
It's still a rough time in Russia.
Yes. Yeah, it was really a rough time. And my present for my birthday, the best birthday present I think I've ever gotten in my life, was an American yogurt. And so I remember that my father, it was impossible to get, right? It was an impossible thing. And you had to have dollars. You couldn't pay for it with rubles. And there was a particular store, which is like the Aspen, if it translated, And you had to go to this, and you couldn't go there unless you've been outside of Russia, which only some select people could have done at that time. And because of my father's affiliation with science, he was able to go and present outside of the Soviet Union. And so he had the opportunity to go outside of the country to come back. And he got me this yogurt, which a simple yogurt, but it was, the opening for me to a completely different world. It was so different and so special, and it was the best present I think I've ever gotten.
God, isn't that amazing? It's funny because I was working, I was doing consulting at the time, and I would go to the Soviet Union, and I remember people asking me, well, what were the Russians like that came home with you? And I would say, there were none.
Mm-hmm.
It was all Finns or Brits or Canadians or Americans. I said, there were no Russians, but the lack of understanding from North America was we really didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating time that you were there, but that's when you left.
Yes.
Okay, so Santa Cruz, at what point were you starting to be accepted by American students? Because look, whether you were from Uruguay or whatever, you still don't speak a language, and it's California.
Yes, it's true. I felt very welcome in the elementary school where I was. It was a very special place. Santa Cruz holds a very special place in my heart. Constantine and I, my husband and I, went to university in Santa Cruz because I think we were just so tied to that location. And the truth is, I felt very much at home and welcome there. It was actually later in middle school that I felt that I wasn't welcome anymore. And I think, that's a difficult time for most kids, that kind of when you go through puberty and things are changing and, you're trying to find a place for yourself. That's when I really felt like I didn't have a strong connection in the United States. I didn't know the music. I didn't have a great understanding of culture, of the culture, but I also didn't have real roots in Russia either. So I felt a little bit out of place no matter what for a significant part, I think, of my time and education. It was really in college.
And this is through your teens, I guess.
Yeah.
And then college was where?
UC Santa Cruz, and I got a degree in biology, and I was really kind of the bane of existence for my counselors because they were like, you have to leave school. You need to leave. You have to get your degree. I took all the classes. I was curious in everything. I didn't know what I wanted to be, and I didn't really have a plan. It was complete it was complete accidents that happened to me, but they were beautiful accidents, and I met amazing people, but I really had no idea what I wanted to do with myself, and biology was fascinating for me, so I ended up doing biology.
And then what kind of a job do you get when you're a biologist?
This is such a good question. It's so funny because I actually, when I got my bachelor's degree, I didn't know at all what I was going to do next. And I felt like I knew about biology, but I didn't actually have any real skills. That's probably more about me than anything else, but it was something that I felt very strongly. And so I looked at things that I wanted to do were related to medicine. It was lab work, that kind of thing. And I ended up in a very serendipitous way getting a job at Caltech in a lab. And I was very, very fortunate to have had that opportunity. And so I ended up doing research in this lab, and I was part of a publication, and I really enjoyed that time. It was really special, but I realized also that I have other interests and that I wanted to always be around science, but I really wanted to bridge into business and kind of help that space between science and business.
So our show is called The Moment That Changed Everything. What was your moment?
Definitely standing in that ocean for the first time. It was so visceral for me. It was a moment when I felt like my old life was washed away, and I had this new opportunity to build something in a new country. And it was so special because it really felt like a completely different place.
What do you do now?
I run a company. I have the privilege of running a company called Lucinetic. I have an amazing team, and we create applied language modeling solutions. So we use AI and machine learning to create efficiencies, create workflows for businesses.
So you've moved quite a distance from biology.
Yes and no. It's an incredible opportunity to be part of any kind of scientific community, and I think it really shapes the way that you think. And I think for me, what was really interesting during this process was really when you start a company, it's really like starting a lab. You don't know what's on the other side of that. You need funding, just like any researcher does, and you make a ton of mistakes, and that's how you get somewhere, right? It's not really mistakes, it's just progress. And so I think that research helped me reframe that whole process of searching and trial and error. And I do believe very, very strongly that running your own startup is very much like running a lab, running a research program. There are very, very strong similarities there, because you're looking at the unknown and you're saying, I'm gonna figure something out here. I don't know if something's gonna come out of it, but I'm going to do it anyway.
So are you having success or levels of success as you go along?
I think it's a really great question, because you have to create those markers of success, right? What does that mean to you? And I absolutely think that we are being successful. We are creating success. And in our model, success looks sometimes similar to what standard companies look for as a successful company. So for example, we have 15% month-over-month growth of new users. But the success that I see that speaks to me much more strongly is every day when somebody uses Lucinetic, if you're a writer, you save a lot of time and you get to do, you get to create a meaningful letter using our system. And then you get to go and do research or do other meaningful things in your life. So you've created that efficiency for people. And then for the people who use the system as a student or as an applicant, right, they're able to advocate for themselves. So they put in information for the letter writer to use, and they get to advocate for their future and advocate for their success. So that's where I see the success of our company.
Is there, I guess, a skill or a way to be able to enter the information so you're able to get something that's more meaningful in the end?
Exactly. So that's what we've created. We have a system where one person puts in information and the other person is able to use that information to create the final product. So that can be a letter of recommendation, but that can also be any other type of structured document, structured text. And that creates efficiency, but it also creates an authenticity pathway, a workflow model. And so that's where I think we really feel strongly the world is going towards authentication, towards a need for humans to be collaborative and work together.
But there's no human process in the process, is there? Or is it all machine learning?
No, it's a blend. So what we've created is a blend where a person can be involved and use the tool as an assistant in a way, a co-writer, through this particular workflow system.
So when you call co-writer's a human as opposed to
a human.
I see.
Yeah.
How'd you think of it?
You know, it was a real work of Constantine and BJ and Greg, who are co-founders and developers, to develop the particular tool. But I think what is really incredible is I get to do this with some of my best friends and partners. And when we came up with this idea, it was really to help people get access to opportunities, right? The idea was, okay, letters of recommendation are something that are, references for humans, right? They're specifically to elevate another person. And sometimes that's not done in a way that it can be to create the best outcomes. So we wanted to change those outcomes and improve those outcomes for the people who don't get to have that. And now we're really thinking about it in a much more broad way of creating efficiency through these workflows, these human workflows that imbue artificial intelligence in them. So we're not giving the task to a machine, we're working with the machine, we're working with this tool to actually elevate the writing and elevate the final product.
So what happens with the assessment of the letter when there's a machine going to be looking at the letter?
This is a really important question, and the answer is there are different ways to use the technology. What we've done is we actually also have a summarizer that we've developed, and this summarizer uses a different type of artificial intelligence. But what we can do is actually improve the outcomes in terms of diversity as well. So we can remove the names and the pronouns of the people who are applying, and really treat every application as a clean, opportunity for people to, have some kind of assessment without having some of those implicit biases that can come in.
You said that the growth of the company is by how much?
15% month over month.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that's pretty neat.
I think people are really excited about artificial intelligence, and there's ChatGPT has come out, which is opening up a lot of conversations around what does this mean. There are different companies that do image, create images, music. AI is really coming out and kind of eating the world, and I think that there are opportunities and there are challenges, but we all have to evolve and continue to grow with the technology that we develop. And, we have to create some kind of internal regulations to make sure that we're doing those things in an ethical manner. And I think there's a huge responsibility that companies have to do that, and to create ways in which this technology is actually meaningful and positive and creates growth and opportunity, rather than, is detrimental.
What's your day like?
This is such a fun question. I have two children,
How old?
10 and 5.
Yeah.
And I have blocks for my day, so I have family time in the morning. That means, we have breakfast together. It's very important for our family to have breakfast together. We talk, we plan for the day, and one of us takes the kids to school. And we then dive into meetings. We have team meetings. We have customer discovery meetings. But one of the things that really energizes me is going through my day. I really look at what is going to be the impact today. What is going to be the most impactful thing that I can do. And I'm very, I try very hard to make sure that gets done as a priority, because I think in business and in life, right, when we just continue to go day to day and we just kind of move forward, sometimes if we don't have those little milestones that we create for ourselves, it feels like we're not making progress. And so I try to create those milestones during the day, where I say, okay, this one thing, if I can do that, then I've been productive today. And I also have...
Are they lofty, or can it be like, I'm salad for lunch?
No, I think that absolutely. I think that's such a good question. And taking care of yourself and making sure that gets done, I think there's a feedback mechanism. There's a positive feedback. Then, you did something that you set out to do, even if it's a tiny thing. It really is helpful kind of to feel like you've accomplished something today that you set out to do. And I think it can be very small. Sometimes I have 3 things on my list and I put them down and I cross them off, and I feel like, okay, even if they're small things, my day didn't run away from me. I had some semblance of control, and I did those things in an intuitive and kind of intentional way. I had planned them out and I got them done, and that makes me feel like I've accomplished something. And I feel like this process of improving something at large, or making a change, or building a company, right, they are such big things that sometimes you really have to really see where you're being successful every day.
Olga, I want to thank you for being on The Moment That Changed Everything. We're recording this from G100 Summit in Los Cabos, Mexico. Thank you. Will you come back and do this again?
Much. Thank you for having me. Absolutely.
Olga, thank you.
It's such
pleasure.
a nice pleasure. Yeah, thank you very much.
To learn more about how you can support G100 initiatives, visit genius100visions.com.